My useless wife will be scrubbing our floor. Henceforth, I'm in charge.
Husband demotes wife and promotes mistress, but didn't expect what happened next. Esteemed viewers, welcome to Luxurious True Life Stories. Please like and subscribe for more captivating luxury true stories. Let's get into the story. Cynthia Nathan lived a simple life that did not match her true status. To the world, she looked like an ordinary woman who preferred quiet mornings, simple clothes, and peaceful walks through the city. Very few people knew that she was actually the secret billionaire owner of Raymond Global Holdings, a powerful international company worth billions. Cynthia believed wealth often ruined relationships, so she hid her identity carefully. Inside the company, only a small group of trusted people knew the truth. Her older brother, Oliver Nathan, helped quietly manage major decisions, while her loyal legal advisor, Margaret Collins, handled sensitive corporate matters. Cynthia often visited the company building unnoticed, watching employees work and studying the culture of the business she had built from the ground up. Despite owning everything, Cynthia still longed for something money could never buy: genuine love. She wanted someone who would care for her without knowing her power or fortune. Cynthia believed that somewhere in the world, a sincere heart existed, and she was determined to find it without revealing who she truly was. Raymond woke up every morning with the same heavy feeling in his chest. For months he had searched for work without success. His savings were gone, his confidence was fading, and the constant rejection from companies was slowly breaking his spirit. Still, David refused to give up. He believed that one opportunity could change everything, and he kept pushing forward despite the frustration. To survive, David spent his days visiting offices, sending applications, and attending interviews that rarely led anywhere. Sometimes he sat quietly in public cafes reviewing job listings, hoping to find something that matched his skills. Even when people doubted him, David held on to one dream: to build a successful career and prove that he could rise above his struggles. Though life felt uncertain, David still believed his future had not yet arrived. He often told himself that difficult seasons never lasted forever. Somewhere ahead, he believed opportunity was waiting for him, and he was determined to find it no matter how long it took. One quiet afternoon, David walked into a small bookstore cafe to escape the stress of another disappointing job search. He ordered a cheap cup of coffee and sat near the window, scrolling through job listings on his phone. The place was calm and peaceful, filled with the soft sound of pages turning and quiet conversations. At another table nearby, Cynthia Nathan sat reading a book. She often visited the cafe because it allowed her to observe ordinary life away from the corporate world. When she noticed David's frustrated expression, she couldn't help but feel curious about him. After a moment, their eyes met briefly, and David offered a polite smile. A simple conversation soon followed. They spoke about books, work struggles, and life in the city. David had no idea that the calm woman sitting across from him owned one of the largest companies in the country. To him, Cynthia seemed kind, intelligent, and genuine, and for Cynthia, David's honesty made their meeting feel unexpectedly meaningful. After that first meeting, David and Cynthia began seeing each other more often at the same bookstore cafe. What started as simple conversations slowly grew into something deeper. They talked about life, struggles, dreams, and the future they both hoped to build someday. David admired how calm and thoughtful Cynthia was, while Cynthia appreciated David's determination despite his difficult situation. David often spoke openly about his desire to succeed and create a better life. He hated depending on others and wanted to prove that hard work could change his destiny. Cynthia listened carefully each time, quietly studying the man she was beginning to care about. His sincerity made her believe he truly valued character over wealth. As their bond grew stronger, Cynthia made an important decision. She would never reveal her wealth to David unless she was certain his love for her was real. For the first time in a long while, she felt hopeful that she might finally find the genuine relationship she had always wanted. As weeks passed, the relationship between Cynthia and David grew stronger. They spent many evenings walking through quiet streets, sharing simple meals, and talking about their hopes for the future. David admired Cynthia's calm personality and the way she always listened carefully when he spoke. To him, she felt different from anyone he had ever met. Eventually, their love became undeniable. David proposed to Cynthia in a small park one evening with nothing more than sincere words and a hopeful heart. Cynthia accepted happily. She did not care about luxury or grand celebrations. What mattered to her was the sincerity she believed she saw in David. Their wedding was small and private, attended by only a few close friends. David believed he was beginning a humble life with a woman who shared his struggles. Cynthia quietly smiled during the ceremony, knowing she had just married the man she hoped would love her for who she truly was, not for the fortune she secretly possessed. After the wedding, life remained simple for Cynthia and David. They lived in a modest apartment and continued their quiet routine. David was still searching for stable work, and the pressure of providing for their future slowly weighed on him. Cynthia noticed his growing frustration but remained calm and supportive. Wanting to help without revealing her secret, Cynthia made a careful decision. Through confidential corporate channels, she arranged for David to be hired at Raymond Global Holdings. To accelerate his confidence, she ensured he was placed directly into the position of general manager, making it appear as if the board had recognized his potential. When David received the job offer, he was stunned. The position was far beyond anything he had expected. Believing his luck had finally changed, he felt proud and grateful for the opportunity. Cynthia simply smiled and congratulated him, quietly watching as the man she loved stepped into a powerful new chapter of his life. David's first weeks as general manager at Raymond Global Holdings were filled with excitement. The large office, the respectful employees, and the authority that came with his position made him feel like his life had finally turned around. For the first time, people listened carefully when he spoke, and his decisions carried real influence inside the company. At home, David spoke proudly about the progress he was making. He told Cynthia about meetings, reports, and the responsibility he now carried. Cynthia listened quietly, happy to see his confidence growing. She never mentioned that the entire company he was managing actually belonged to her. As the weeks passed, David became more comfortable with his new power. Employees respected him, executives followed his instructions, and the company continued running smoothly under his leadership. Slowly, he began to feel that he had earned his success completely on his own, unaware that the woman supporting him at home had quietly opened the door for everything he now had. Months passed, and David quickly grew comfortable with the power of his position. Being the general manager meant people stood when he entered rooms, listened carefully when he spoke, and followed his instructions without hesitation. The respect and authority began changing how he saw himself. Confidence slowly turned into pride. At home, his attitude towards Cynthia began shifting. He no longer spoke with the same humility he once had when he was unemployed. Instead, he often talked about how important his role was and how difficult it was to lead such a large company. Cynthia noticed the change, but remained calm and observant. David started believing his success was entirely the result of his own talent. The thought that someone might have helped him never crossed his mind. As his ego quietly grew, Cynthia watched carefully, hoping the man she loved would remain the same person she had first met in the small bookstore cafe. One morning at the company, a new senior staff member caught David's attention. Her name was Jane Patrick, a confident and ambitious woman who had recently joined the executive team. Jane carried herself with charm and intelligence, and she quickly learned how to impress the people around her. Jane noticed David immediately. As the general manager, he held a significant authority in the company. She often approached him with ideas, compliments, and helpful suggestions during meetings. David began appreciating her attention and professionalism, believing she was one of the most capable employees in the office. Soon Jane started spending more time around David, discussing projects and business plans. Her flattering words and confident personality slowly drew David closer to her. What began as professional interaction quietly started becoming something far more personal, though David hardly realized how much influence Jane was gaining over him. Jane Patrick quickly became one of the most visible employees around David's office. She always appeared prepared, confident, and supportive of his decisions. Whenever David proposed an idea during meetings, Jane was often the first to praise it. Her constant admiration made David feel even more important and respected. Outside meetings, Jane began visiting David's office more frequently. Sometimes she brought documents to review, other times she simply stayed to discuss company plans. The conversations slowly shifted from professional matters to personal topics. David found himself enjoying her company more than he expected. At home, Cynthia noticed David becoming distant. He returned later from work and seemed less interested in their usual conversations. While Cynthia remained quiet, she could sense that something around David had begun to change again, this time in a direction that made her uneasy. As weeks passed, Jane Patrick's presence around David became impossible for employees to ignore. She was often seen leaving his office with a confident smile, while other staff members whispered quietly in the hallways. Jane had successfully positioned herself close to the most powerful person in the company. David began trusting Jane more than many of the senior employees. He frequently asked for her opinions on company matters and even invited her to important meetings that she normally would not attend. Jane used every opportunity to strengthen her influence, praising David while subtly criticizing others around him. At home, the distance between David and Cynthia continued growing. The conversations became shorter, and David rarely shared details about his work anymore. Cynthia remained patient and observant, quietly watching how the man she once admired was slowly changing in ways she never expected. One afternoon, Cynthia visited the company building as she sometimes did. She preferred walking through the offices quietly, observing how things were running. Most employees barely noticed her because she dressed simply and carried herself like an ordinary staff member. During a meeting that day, David openly criticized the report that Cynthia had helped prepare through one of the departments. Without realizing she was present nearby, he spoke harshly about the work and dismissed it in front of several employees. Jane sat beside him, nodding in agreement while others remained silent. Cynthia heard everything. She did not react, but the moment revealed something important to her. The man who once respected people's efforts was now comfortable humiliating others to show his authority. She quietly walked away, beginning to understand that David's growing pride might soon lead him much further than she ever imagined. Not long after the meeting, David began making major staff changes inside the company. With Jane constantly advising him, he reviewed departments and reassigned several employees to different roles. Jane often encouraged him to remove anyone she considered unimportant or weak. One morning, David called Cynthia into his office. His tone was cold and distant. He claimed that her role in the company had become unnecessary and that she was no longer performing at the level he expected. Jane sat nearby watching quietly, her expression filled with quiet satisfaction. David then made a shocking decision. He demoted Cynthia to work as a janitor in the building, saying it would teach her discipline and responsibility. At the same time, he proudly promoted Jane Patrick to a higher executive position. Employees were stunned, but no one dared challenge the general manager's authority. Cynthia simply accepted the decision calmly and walked out of the office without arguing. The following days were difficult for Cynthia, yet she remained calm and composed. Wearing a simple janitor's uniform, she quietly cleaned hallways and offices inside the very company she owned. Most employees avoided looking at her, unsure how to react to what had happened. Meanwhile, Jane proudly settled into her new executive office. She enjoyed the attention, the authority, and the luxury that came with her promotion. She often walked through the building confidently, sometimes passing Cynthia in the hallways without hiding her satisfaction. While the company continued its daily operations, Cynthia began making quiet preparations behind the scenes. Through her trusted legal advisor, Margaret Collins, she started organizing important documents related to the company and her marriage. Everything was being prepared carefully, though no one in the company knew what was coming. A major announcement soon spread throughout Raymond Global Holdings. The company would host the grand gala celebration to welcome the official appearance of the mysterious CEO who owned the corporation. For years, the true identity of the CEO had remained hidden, and employees were excited to finally meet the person behind the powerful company. David saw the event as an opportunity to strengthen his reputation. As general manager, he was responsible for organizing many parts of the celebration. He spent days reviewing arrangements, decorations, and guest lists while enjoying the attention that came with his leadership role. Throughout the preparations, Cynthia quietly continued her janitor duties around the building. Many employees ignored her presence, never imagining she had any connection to the coming event. While the company buzzed with excitement about meeting the CEO, Cynthia remained silent, calmly waiting for the night that would change everything. As the night of the company gala approached, the atmosphere inside Raymond Global Holdings became filled with excitement and preparation. Elegant decorations were installed throughout the grand event hall, luxurious lighting illuminated the building, and staff members moved quickly to ensure everything looked perfect for the mysterious CEO's arrival. Employees whispered with curiosity, wondering who the powerful owner of the company could possibly be. Some believed the CEO was an elderly billionaire investor, while others imagined a famous business leader from another country. No one truly knew the answer. David Raymond walked through the decorated hall with confidence, giving instructions to the event coordinators and security teams. As general manager, he felt proud that such a prestigious event was happening under his leadership. His suit was perfectly tailored, his posture confident, and his voice carried authority as he directed staff members around the venue. Jane Patrick walked beside him, enjoying the attention just as much. She admired the luxurious decorations, imagining how powerful their future could become within the company. Jane openly celebrated her new position and growing influence. She spoke proudly about the responsibilities she now held and enjoyed being treated like one of the top executives in the building. Whenever she passed Cynthia in the hallways during the day, she could not hide her amusement. To Jane, Cynthia had become nothing more than a powerless janitor who had once been foolish enough to challenge her rise. But Cynthia remained quiet and calm. While others rushed around preparing for the gala, she continued performing her cleaning duties with quiet dignity. No one noticed the calm confidence in her eyes or the patience with which she watched everything unfold. The employees were excited to meet the mysterious CEO that night, unaware that the woman they had been ignoring for weeks was the very person they were waiting for. The night of the gala finally arrived, and Raymond Global Holdings transformed into a dazzling scene of elegance and luxury. Expensive cars pulled up outside the building as investors, executives, and important guests stepped onto the red carpet leading into the grand hall. Soft music filled the air, while crystal lights reflected across polished floors. Employees gathered in groups, excited and nervous about meeting the powerful CEO who had remained hidden for so many years. David Raymond stood near the entrance greeting important guests as they arrived. He wore a confident smile, proud of how successful the company had become under his leadership. Jane Patrick stood beside him in a stunning evening dress, enjoying the attention from guests who now treated her as one of the most powerful women in the company. She whispered confidently to David about the future they could build together now that she held an executive position. Inside the hall, conversations continued as everyone waited for the CEO to appear. Security teams quietly took their positions while senior executives prepared for the long-awaited moment. Among the staff moving around the building that evening was Cynthia Nathan, still dressed in her simple uniform. She walked calmly through the corridors, unnoticed by the crowd celebrating inside, patiently waiting for the exact moment when everything would finally be revealed. As the gala continued, the grand hall slowly filled with anticipation. Investors, senior executives, and employees gathered around elegant tables while soft music played in the background. Everyone was waiting for the moment when the mysterious CEO would finally arrive. Whispers moved across the room as people guessed who the powerful owner of the company might be. David stood proudly near the front of the hall, speaking confidently with important guests. Jane remained beside him, enjoying the attention and admiration she was receiving. Both of them believed the night would strengthen their influence inside the company. Neither of them imagined that the evening was about to take an unexpected turn. A few moments later, the atmosphere in the hall suddenly shifted. Several members of the executive board quietly entered the room and took their places. The music softened and conversations slowly faded as attention turned toward the entrance. Then, to everyone's surprise, Cynthia Nathan calmly walked into the hall, no longer wearing the janitor's uniform but dressed in an elegant gown. The room grew silent as she stepped forward, and confusion spread across David and Jane's faces as they watched her approach. The entire hall fell into stunned silence as Cynthia Nathan continued walking forward with calm confidence. The elegant gown she wore, the composed expression on her face, and the quiet respect shown by the board members around her immediately changed the atmosphere in the room. Guests and employees looked at one another in confusion, trying to understand what was happening. David stared at Cynthia in disbelief. Just days earlier he had ordered her to clean the floors of the very building she now walked through with authority. Jane's confident smile slowly disappeared as she realized something was terribly wrong. The executives standing beside Cynthia greeted her respectfully, confirming what many in the room were beginning to understand. Cynthia finally stopped at the front of the hall and calmly looked across the crowd. In a clear voice, she revealed the truth. She was the true owner and CEO of Raymond Global Holdings. The shock that followed spread instantly through the room. Without anger or hesitation, Cynthia announced that David Raymond was being removed from his position as general manager. Jane Patrick was dismissed from the company as well. At the same time, Cynthia confirmed that her marriage to David was officially over. Within moments, the powerful life David believed he controlled completely collapsed before everyone's eyes. After the announcement, the grand hall remained silent for several moments. Guests whispered among themselves while employees struggled to process what had just happened. The truth had shattered the image everyone once believed. The woman they had ignored and mocked for weeks was the true leader of the entire company. David stood frozen, unable to understand how everything had collapsed so quickly. The authority he once enjoyed had disappeared within seconds. Jane, realizing the power she relied on was gone, quietly stepped away from him. Without David's position, she no longer saw any advantage in staying beside him, and she left the hall without another word. Meanwhile, Cynthia remained calm and composed. The painful chapter of her life had finally closed. With the company back under her full control and the truth revealed, she chose to move forward with dignity. The night that had exposed betrayal also marked the beginning of a new life, one where Cynthia Nathan would continue leading her company with strength, wisdom, and a clearer understanding of who truly deserved a place beside her. As this story comes to an end, remember that behind every luxury lies a truth few ever see. If this story moved you, support the channel by liking, sharing, and subscribing. Until the next unforgettable true story, stay inspired and stay curious.